those improvements, we also receive LIPA rebates. And those LIPA rebates can range anywhere between $250,000 and $700,000. Our number is still being determined. When we see that number, it'll be utilized moving forward. So the budget development calendar, as you know, April 18th is our next meeting, at which point Mrs. Newman will do the 3-component budget review. Once it's adopted, the budget cannot be altered. So that's why we do this informal budget hearing. So what every Commack student will experience in 13-14 if the board adopts and the community approves a 2.91% tax levy increase, predominantly is exactly the same program, and in some ways it's enhanced. So we do note at the bottom some of the changes so that there serve as a reminder of things that were originally discussed, but based on input from not only the community but from the Board of Education, the current administration is no longer recommending. So those 3 items are there: guidance counselors, late buses. We just want to clarify what's happening with the school nurses so that people are familiar with that. So, as a matter of course, this particular night is a budget hearing. It's not a workshop. It's developed as a budget hearing. So what we'll do now is field any questions from the Board of Education. After fielding questions from the Board of Education, the board will move back to their table, and then we'll field questions from the community in a hearing fashion. So at this time, are there any questions from board members? I'll repeat the question for you.
As far as the movies rate, how often do we get rated?
Mr. Okay. So the question was, how often do we receive a Moody's rating? I'm going to let Mrs. Newman answer that question.
So typically, school districts will go out for a Moody's rating in one of 2 scenarios, similar to the situation that we were in, where we were looking to refinance debt, or if we were financing debt for the first time, we would seek a Moody's rating. The other occasion might be if a significant amount of time had gone past, or if there was a significant change to your financial condition that you would have to go out and request a Moody's rating again.
So reserves go down.
The question is, I'm sorry, say that again? As our reserves go down, could we expect our Moody's rating to go down as well? The answer to that would be yes. One of the conditions or one of the statements that the Moody's report specified, as we placed on the slide, is that there was a direct correlation between the amount of fiscal health and flexibility and adequate reserves supported the rating that they had given us. So yes, in short order, as you spend down your reserves, you lose that fiscal health stability and flexibility, and we would expect to see that rating go down as well.
So to add to that, of course, that does concern us, managing the budget moving forward. As we consider rising cost scenarios, significant rising costs such as the pension costs, and the forecast for those to begin to wane, that will hopefully put us in a position to begin to replenish some of those reserves so that we might not experience that type of issue in the past. So we understand it's this balancing act that we try to strike regarding how much do we have in reserves, how does it affect our credit rating, how does it affect our borrowing, versus how do we maintain a lower tax levy increase, simultaneously keeping a program in place that everybody desires and wants. So it's a great question. Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Is our Moody's rating, does it influence our TANs and the grants as well?
I'm sorry?
TANs, financing, grant,
Does the Moody's rating affect our TAN and BAN borrowing? The short answer to that is yes. In my TANs, tax anticipation notes, are taken out by every district on Long Island because we don't receive our taxes until about December. Right? When you pay your taxes, the district starts to receive them, the town collects them, the district starts to receive them between July 1 and when we start to receive our taxes, we wouldn't have that money. Well, no district on the island does. So they take out something called the tax anticipation note, unless they have sufficient reserves and have cash flow, which frankly 95% of all districts do not have sufficient. Mrs. Newman wants to add.
If I could just point out also that as one of the reasons that we have over time kept our TAN borrowing stable and in some cases decreased was because of the reserves that we had that was able to assist us in funding those first 6 months where we're technically cash poor. As those reserves over time are lowered and depleted, it could be construed we would probably have to borrow more of our TAN borrowing funds in order to make up for that difference as well.
Thank you, Sue. Mr. Washington?
On the ERS, we've got 6 different tiers at different contribution rates. Did the percentage go up the same in each of the tiers?
The question is, in ERS, there are 6 different tiers. Did the percentage go up the same in each tier, or was it a variable rate change?
I believe it was fairly similar, but I don't want to say they were exact.
Okay,
Similar, but not necessarily exact.
thank you.
Are there any questions from the board?
The push into the TAs,
I'm sorry?
TA push into
Third grade push in, the TA push in the 3rd grade. So in other words, when we lent the additional support, teaching assistant support in the larger class sizes in 3rd grade. I think we got, initially there was some concern about that from community members. Some community members, they said, we'd rather you add another section. We indicated it was difficult to add another section at that time of year. The class sizes now have been stabilized, and of course we've equalized them between Borough and Sawmill. And so managing that moving forward, the kids are another year older. They become more independent. So we're going to work off that same model. So I think we got some mixed reactions from people in the community. They may be. They may be the same TAs, but they may be used differently because it'll be between 2 different schools. Yes. The question was, did we decide to use the TA model because of feedback we received from teachers and administrators? The answer to that would be yes. So the idea that we would add additional sections, managing that component moving forward is difficult from a financial perspective. So we're looking to strike a balance. Ideally, would we add another section? Sure. If we could add another section, drop the class sizes further, absolutely. Managing to add 2 more sections is another $250,000. Correct. The open air school.
Could you say that again? One of the things that we wanted to concern is that the solution that we've come up with to try for this particular year coming forward with the do not exceeds and also that 5-day window of must determine this, would that have solved or would that address this issue this year had you had this in place and known we were going to deal with that?
Yes. If we had a do not exceed number that would have created another section prior to the opening of school this year, that would have resolved that issue. So when we set this year's do not exceed number, in anticipation of that, then we have that in place, particularly for the lower grades. Okay. Any more questions from the board? Okay, sure.
The specialized program for specialists, $910,000. How high can that go?
The question that Mr. Egan is asking is the specialized programs for special ed students of $910,000, how high can it go? So that represents 13 students coming into the school district, guest students, their school districts pay tuition. It could go higher. We are very measured in admittance of guest students because one, it has an impact on our own programs. 2, it does come at some expense, and although it's a corresponding revenue which would offset that expense, we want to be careful of the impact to the school setting. So in addition to that, we look at the profile. So if the profile doesn't match, in other words, if that student comes with needs that don't match the needs of our children, that would be too disruptive, so we don't do that. So that's why we do it very slowly, and we indicate that they're guests. So if they come in for a year and we recognize, listen, this just isn't working, we say to their home school district, we need to consider where else they might attend school because this model doesn't work for them. So could it grow? Absolutely. It could reasonably, within the next 3 to 5 years, double. And that would be quite slow. I've worked in districts much smaller than this where it was almost 3 times that. We send out, the question is, how do other districts know we have this? A lot of it's word of mouth. Actually, some of it has to do with solicitation. We send out letters to every school district on the island indicating that we have this program. However, word of mouth is probably our strongest advocate. In fact, we know that advocacy attorneys will say to parents, if you want a good program, Commack's got something. You should talk to your district about sending your child there. So pretty predominantly 2 different ways. This is Ryan, as well as her assistant, Mrs. Bryant, work actively in conversations with special ed directors in other districts, sharing the word about what we have, what we can offer. There's a lot of that conversation in meetings, through listservs, so there's a lot of networking associated with that in an effort to try to increase the number of students. Again, measured. Does that answer your question? Okay, at this time, could I ask the board to return to the table, and we will be prepared to answer questions.
At this time, we will begin that process of walking up to the microphone with whatever questions you might have. Please identify yourself and the line forms in each aisle. And being aware that the hearing is being taped, and therefore it is for our courtesy to let you know that. And from this point forward, please move. Oh, no one. I'm sorry. We're sometimes used to getting double up, but that's fine. So if we need that next time, we will. Thank you. Come to the microphone at this microphone.
Hi, whoops. Hello. Oh, sorry. I guess I'm electric. I have a question for you. The laptops that we're getting through grant money are, I have a problem because with the Common Core, the Common Core curriculum, you're doing a lot of data mining, and that's their word, not mine. And they have, in the U.S. Department of Education, there's a booklet that just came out February 2013, and it's called Promoting Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance, Critical Factors for the Success in the 21st Century. And on page V, which would be 5, it's now part of the Common Core to do this. Well, if you go to page 44 on this, they show lots of techniques on how to gather information from our children via a laptop, through the camera, iris recognition, facial recognition. The mouse has tensions to know whether the kid is stressed or not. They have chairs that will promote whether they're sitting up straight and their posture, and to analyze that. If you go to the National Education Data Model, where you can find a list of all the information that they're going to be mining our children on, including whether your voting status as a family, what your religion is, and biometrics, as opposed to, biometrics can be anything from DNA to fingerprints. And they're going to have all this information that then they are going to be able to share with any interested party in the government. If you guys don't know that much about Common Core, you need to read up. I will give you as much information as I found from the direct resources from the Department of Education. And they got a lot of funding through the stimulus bill in 2009. My question to you is, what are you going to do to protect our children from the vast amount of data that they want to collect via you. And it's not through just elementary school or high school. It's college, and it's after they get a job. And it's just going to be stacked there for whoever wants, whoever the government says can access it without parental permission. It's extremely dangerous. And I took this opportunity because my son is no longer in school. But this is our children. This is our children, and I really would like an answer to that. How are you going to protect them from this?
Well, you're actually bringing up valid concerns. I've attended numerous meetings and public hearings regarding the Common Core, as well as the new park assessments, online assessments for children. The resistance is dramatic. You're not the first person that I've sat in meetings and heard from regarding this is inappropriate. So the mandate at this point has not come to fruition. So we are preparing, in essence, to have the technology, but regarding the language associated with actually forcing us to do this, that hasn't come to fruition yet. So we are fighting that at return. I've personally been to a number of meetings, attended a meeting in New York City, and there were probably 1,800 people voicing their concerns similar to yours. There's some different concerns as well regarding the Common Core, the implementation of the Common Core, the speed at which the Common Core is implemented, the number of standardized assessments, all of those issues, and they're legitimate issues. So we continue to monitor that. One of the things that we will do is be sure that if we're mandated to do something for which we have no choice, we will notify the community. But at this point, we don't have mandates on them gathering that data from us yet. But if we do, we'll tell them.
And how are you going to protect that information?
Well, it's the information they're gathering.
No, it's information that they want the teachers to gather on their students at every turn. Every little tiny piece of information that they can gather, they're supposed to then turn over. And then it's supposed to be under the guise of having better education for your children. But I think a teacher who's there to listen to a student, to see firsthand, our education was very good when we were younger. We didn't have the computers, we didn't have all this newfangled stuff, but we had teachers who cared about us and looked out for our liberty and our safety and our protection, and I just feel we're putting our kids at great, great risk.
We will absolutely, and we still have very caring teachers. They're terrific. And we will do everything legally possible to protect the privacy of our children. We do have.
I am sorry for taking up so much time, but I'm very, very passionate.
Legitimate concerns.
My name is Teresa Burke, and I have just two questions. One is regarding the legal section. You budgeted last year for a certain amount of money for the legal, but each and every month we go to board meetings and find out there range from $28,000 to $35,000 increases. Did you take that into consideration when you fixed the budget for the portion of legal fees this year?
Yes, we take into account not only the historical information, but also what we anticipate, and again, that's what our budget is, what we anticipate the fees will be. At this time, we're projecting no increase, that it will remain within those budgeted levels.
So we shouldn't be seeing $28,000 to $35,000 a month additional?
When you say we see...
every meeting,
month,
right.
that is merely a point of interest for the Board of Education. That is included within the budgeted figure. It's not the budgeted figure plus that increase.
So,
It's not an addition.
so we could still be seeing that next year, basically.
It's not extra.
Teresa, in essence,
So-
it's a statement of how much we spend each month toward that $528,000.
So the 500, so every month when they state how much the legal fee is, that, and how are we as far as on target? Is that what you're saying, that you're budgeting it pretty accurately? Okay, that's good. Actually, it's a good thing.
And we actually have high hopes that at some points in time, people will become less litigious, and perhaps that particular dollar figure will be less.
Okay. Then the only other question, or actually statement and then a question to follow it up. At the last meeting, I stood up here and I suggested being more aggressive with the contracts. Now, we're losing librarians, nurses, custodians, and mental health professionals. We're adding back in 1 support and 1 counselor. Taking that into consideration, because I've already pleaded my case of how important I think these 5 areas, cutting custodians just means there's going to be fewer people trying to keep all of these up to the par that they've been at. And I've got to give them credit because they've been doing a great job. But of course, if something's going to lack, kids are going to get sick, and that means we're going to need the nurses. As far as the librarians, I look at it as this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 children in the family, you've got 2 parents working. Sometimes that's the only resource they have. So to cut that area, again, it goes to the academics of the children, what is access out there. So when I say librarians and nurses and custodians and mental health, those are the areas that I think we should have looked to try to keep in versus the other areas that you chose not to look at. With that said, the only other question that I cannot figure out what's going on is part of each of the contracts, you use different items to negotiate. So with the teacher's contract, you have a cap of how many students they can teach. So why are you putting up something this year saying that your caps are lower than what the caps in the contracts are? So you're letting them know that, don't worry, even though that was part of a negotiation in the past, we're not reaching that. So I'm not understanding that concept. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Because there could be other things in contracts that are kind of similar to that we're not seeing.
Are you ready?
Go ahead.
The important thing is, we know that parents are sending their children to school. We are very much focused on that relationship between parent, child, and the building. And so, yes, of course, it seems like it's an indication that things might be somewhat easier, I would imagine you could say it that way, or less workload for them. That's not the point.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
No.
Okay.
You're saying that we're like...
You use that as part of a contract, a negotiation in a contract, but you're not holding up to that, so it kind of like
No,
is
we're not
washed.
in negotiations right now, and we're purposefully attending to the needs of those students, and we want very much so not to have what happened this year come on us as a surprise. So we have looked at whatever has happened historically throughout Commack. We always look at how the year went, how did we get started, how did we move forward. We're carefully addressing one particular aspect of it, and in our minds, more important than negotiation right now, although I want you to understand, we negotiate very carefully. We negotiate each contract as it becomes appropriate to negotiate, and we do not play games and come across as if we are not as firm as you are in our motive and our goal. But the needs of the children are the reason why we attended to the do not exceed. We want parents to have that level of comfort that their child will start school and there will be an understanding of what size that class will be. And if that happens to be something that changes within the period of time before school starts, it works to fix. Once school starts, we do not want to have that flip-flop disruption, and therefore we're defining this for our parents, for our children, and in the process, believe me, we are prepared to sit down with every contract.
No, perhaps you're not understanding just my point. Just let me say, why have something in a contract that you're not going to enforce?
Okay.
That's anything. This just happened to be the...
You mean the ceiling?
Why have it in the... That's what I'm asking. I'm asking, why have something in the contract if you're not going to enforce it? That's it. It could be anything. It could be bathroom breaks. I don't care. Why have it in the contract if you're not going to enforce it? I have no intention of enforcing it. That's what my question is.
So here's the thing. We will. I guess maybe you aren't understanding how this do not exceed is working. Up until 5 days before the end, 5 business days before the end of August, we have this do not exceed cap. You and I have children the same age, so our children were the beneficiaries of lower class sizes. Clearly, regardless of what the cap is in the contract, fewer children in the class is a better scenario, not necessarily for the teacher, for the children learning. So we want to do our best to keep that as low as possible. However, come September, school opens September 9th this coming year, Come September 12th, and 4 children move in, push in any particular grade, pushing above that do not exceed, we're not now opening up a new section. And if that number is now reaching the maximum at the cap, well, then that's what it is. We're just trying to accommodate as best as we can the needs of the children before school starts. We can't control everything. We're trying to control as best as we can what we can before the beginning of school. The teachers aren't under any expectation that, great, they've indirectly lowered that cap number. No, that cap number's there, and if we have to push up to that cap number, we will. That cap number's not ideal, though. And anybody, and you and I will both admit, our kids benefited from lower numbers in classes for that cap. So that's all that's for. It's for before school opens, we're going to do our best not to have this bubble, not to have this class that's going to suddenly be much larger than is any other place. So we're going to keep these numbers in place, and then become, like I said, after school starts, those numbers are no longer relevant. It's the cap number that's in the contract.
Okay, so you're just stating that in each of the contracts for all of the different areas, there's nothing in there that you're not going to be possibly reaching. I'm just...
Right, if the population, if there's an influx in population and we have to hit that cap after the beginning of the school year.
So these aren't set in stone. What you're saying today, they can change.
No, right.
We haven't changed the contract. We're trying to put at ease the process of entering school, especially because, along with the fact that an additional child is an additional child, the anxiety that we want to help.
Okay, I think what you're doing is you're getting fixated on the enlarging class sizes, which I'm not. I'm not focusing on that. I'm just focusing on, as I stated before, when contracts come up for a negotiation, everything in there should be held to its level. And from this implementation, it seemed like you weren't going to hold to that point.
We couldn't change the contract.
No, I know you're not changing the contract. You're just saying that you're not going to go up to the max.
This is directed to parents and children, and it works for a year. We'll see how it goes. That's all.
I want to stress, librarians was brought up. Every child will have the same level of librarian services moving forward as they have this year.
Good evening, my name is Jim Tambolini. And let me just start off by saying that I think for the most part you guys did some decent work this year in trying to get these numbers down. It's shorter for once in my life. Anyway, I think for the most part there's some significant savings here that you guys have been able to accomplish, but I do have some questions, and I think there's some places where some work can be done. Now, your legal fees especially is over $500,000 a year.
Jim, I'm sorry, can you? I can't really
Okay. Your legal fees over $500,000, it seems, for the past couple of years. How long has Larry Bonoski been your counsel?
Over 30 years.
Okay, and I know a lot of districts do this, and I think it's something that the board could consider, is putting out an RFP for legal services, because how do you know you're getting the best possible price if you stay with the same guy for 30 years? You have no way even to make him competitive if he thinks he's got no competition. I think that's something the board should seriously consider doing. If it winds up being low bidder, well, then so be it. But I know there are a number of different firms out there. And there's also consideration, I would suggest, is perhaps, as some districts do, is hire in-house or in-district attorneys to handle the smaller stuff and use the outside counsel for the larger.
We have considered doing an RFP, and you are aware that no matter what the RFP comes in at, we do not have to take the lowest bidder for a service like this.
I understand that. But what I'm saying you're balanced when it comes in, but
We respect your opinion, and we actually share the fact that we share in it, and that we are looking into it.
We are actually looking at it and having to work on it. There are other
And have you considered using a couple of in-house or one or two in-house attorneys to handle the smaller items that maybe can save costs?
When the RFP is designed, the response committee will do cost benefit analysis. We've done that in
And speaking of RFPs, I do have one issue with the RFP that was done this past year with regard to the community relations, Starboard Media, and also FTC consultants. Now, I understand you don't have to put an RFP out for those things, but if you're going to do it, I think to give the best appearance as possible, you should put it in a paper with the largest publication that may give you the biggest opportunity to get some competitive bids in. The RFPs that were done this year for those two services were done in local newspapers. I know they're authorized, but nobody reads the Huntington Record and the Smithtown Messenger. And it seems to me, very few people read it, and certainly not as many as read Newsday. And I think you would have obtained maybe some more competitive bidding. And not that they're overpriced, but how do you know if they're the only people who have responded, because the circulation of these two papers that you placed the RFPs in are much smaller than a Newsday or a New York Times. So real quickly, I have to point out one thing that I'm totally astounded by, and I went back and I looked at some of the board meeting minutes, and there was one missing online, and I let the district know back in October, and he sent me a copy of it, and it was the June 12th board meeting minutes. And I noticed on the back of that very last page, this board unanimously approved hiring Dr. James's replacement secretary for $107,000 a year, $106,500 a year. Now, I'm really struggling to figure out what that was all about, because my understanding from what I was able to look at, and I don't need to mention names, is totally unnecessary. This person was Dr. James's former secretary from East Moriches, and she was making much less than $106,000 where she came from. So not only did you not bid this out or put a help wanted ad in the paper, I'm sure you would have got thousands of people who are looking for jobs for a lot less money than $107,000, but how do you justify a secretary making that kind of money in these circumstances?
For starters, the person that you replaced was making more, so this was savings. Secondly, the fact is, within that range, that's okay, that's a fact.
I understand that.
Okay, and the fact is, that person, as well as the new person, in most districts is working as one person, where if you speak to other districts, there's two. And there's more than two. So with that in mind, and we looked around two other districts as to their setup, we also know that with that particular role in the district, it is key to the very much needed organization, positive movement, and all that goes along with the communication and the work that the superintendent does. And I have to say, without hesitation, our superintendent does more than any superintendent I've ever worked with less. And so, in that regard, this person could be two, which means perhaps the double salary would even be more, not to mention the benefits and all that go along with that. And secondly, with the idea that the original person having left is a cost savings, we really believe in the people that we hire, and Dr. James has worked that much harder, so does his secretary.
All right, well,
just so you know, Jim, it was not, you suggested there was nobody else interviewed for that position, but that's not true.
Okay, I also like to add one other thing. It is not uncommon that administrators, when they are hired by a new district, bring their secretary with us. That is a very common practice.
And if I can ask you a question, Mr. Timberlake, because you just stated you read all of the minutes except possibly the June 12th minutes, correct? You just stated that, didn't you?
No, I said I looked at them.
You looked at them, okay.
Correct.
You also sent a letter to Albany stating that this board has always voted unanimously. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In those minutes, I voted no 12 times at 9 different meetings, 4 of which you came to the microphone and spoke. I just want to set the record straight for you that that letter to Albany had a blatant lie.
So other than those 12 times, everything was unanimous?
No, wait a minute. You said the board has always voted unanimously. Will you stand here and say that what you sent to Albany was wrong and a lie?
No, I won't until I see the board minutes. And then
I thought you read it.
I don't remember what they said, and I certainly wasn't looking at every little line to make sure you voted or didn't vote for the
But you were also
amendments.
here. So, I mean,
Let's
Okay.
So anyway,
Stop.
excuse me, this is our meeting.
You're undermining your own credibility. Stop.
Peter, you did make a point.
let me-
There's a refusal to address it any further, and now we move forward.
right.
If the budget, please pertain.
No, hang on. I want to respond to a couple of things that you said. First of all, the fact that the person that the current secretary replaced was making more, that is not an answer to that, because this I don't care if it's one person. This district can't afford that kind of money. Other districts, I know for a fact, are paying their secretaries, the superintendent secretaries, much less, $65,000 to $70,000 a year. And
More than one, go ahead.
okay, well, no, there are some, but I'm not saying that this is the only one.
It's a math problem. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's not. It's more than a math problem. I don't care what other districts do. I care what my district does with my tax dollars. And I think $106,500 per secretary and superintendent is a little overpaid. Sorry. And I think that, you know, the cronyism here is being overlooked. I don't know who they interviewed, but certainly there was no ad put out. Maybe you had other people that you want, friends you wanted to hire, but there was no ad put out anywhere, because I'm sure you would have had 1,000 qualified candidates taking a job for $60,000 or $70,000 for sure. Second of all, when you do things like that, you undermine this board's credibility, you undermine the superintendent's credibility. When they go to the unions, they go to their employees, and they say, give me money back, make concessions, I'm breaking my promise to you in the contracts that I signed, because we have no money. But you find money when you want to find it, and that's the problem with this district, is they're not using the dollars wisely, and they speak out of both sides of their mouth. How can you go to the union and negotiate with them when you have no credibility? When they're looking at you and saying, what are you talking about? Do you think the other secretaries are standing by watching this woman get hired and not saying nothing?
Jim, but you're actually saying one thing is irrelevant when we say to you that the salary the current secretary is making is significantly less than what the salary was, of the person who previously held that job. That's not good enough for you.
No one's not good enough for me. You gave this woman a $15,000 raise to come here. She was only making $91,000, and he's more riches.
I think what he's trying to say is
Sir, I'm
it's
sorry.
not as efficient as it could have been.
And that's fair for you.
You have teachers being laid off and staffing questions.
And that's,
You could gain more efficiency.
and that is something that you can consider, and you're entitled to that opinion. As a confidential, she's more than just a secretary. As you well know, what passes her desk are things that she, as the superintendent secretary, has to maintain a high level of confidence and.
Listen, I understand.
I'm sorry that's not what you believe, but
Okay.
that is in fact what it
We
is.
do believe it was a wise decision. I'm sure that you have your opinions and you have a right to them. It's fine. That's all that we really have to
Can I
do.
just say one thing to that comment?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I agree, the salary of $106,000 is a lot of money. But I think this is off the top, and so in my experience, most districts this size have 2 or 3 secretaries in that office. That's a fact. So to say that we're spending an exorbitant amount of money in that office for secretarial is not totally true. Yes, the individual may be highly paid, but she's working by herself. I think that's a fair statement.
Well, I think that the fact that if you could have got this secretary for a little less money, maybe $70,000 or $80,000, taking into consideration the high confidentiality that she has to attest to, maybe you could have served a nurse's job or somebody else's job, because that money made a
The
difference.
$30,000, with all due respect, and I know you're trying to round the truth.
I'm not trying to round anybody. I'm just speaking a fact
We
here.
had to hire somebody to help her do.
Well, I know Sewanok is a much larger school district than this. They got one secretary for the superintendent.
That's a good thing that we know that, but I don't know what to do with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mark Strent. I'm a parent in the district. Our daughters are in 5th grade and 1st grade. And I have two and a half questions. Yeah, sort of. It depends. Depends if I need a third. So, on page 19 with the class sizes, Amy Ron spoke about, and Debbie Gruber spoke about, we all agree that class size helps, of course, the students for, at most, and the teachers probably as well. Specifically at Indian Hollow, the 2nd grade projection on page 19, 24 to 25 projected versus 22 at Northridge, 2021 at Rolling Hills, and 22 at Wood Park. What was the, how does that process happen in terms of the...
That's just demographics, where the children live and what school they'll go to. I mean, it really is all that is.
So, with that said, the DNEs of 23 for kindergarten, 25 and 26, is that always uniform across each school at the elementary level, or is there some, variation, discussion?
There are variations and discussions predominantly based on the number of students and how they break GAS and track sessions. There are variations. Sometimes it fits perfectly, and every school is roughly the same size, and other times it doesn't. And there is variation. 2 or 3 meetings ago, we did a longitudinal presentation regarding class sizes over time. You can see that there are these peaks and valleys, but they average out to be roughly the same. It doesn't help if your child is the one who's a particular class.
It just seems that with the others, you're saying it's based on the demographics. Was there discussion on the Northridge 6 and the Indian Hollow 5 at the 2nd grade level? Okay, and that was the conclusion then. Okay, and then the other question is on the general fund page, the detailed page. How is the determination made with textbooks? It seems like Indian Hollow gets crushed pretty hard with textbooks. It's minus 21.5%, and then on the instructional supplies in Indian Hollow, that's down 24%. How is that determination made of those sections? And then just before you answer, I don't understand on the line on that same page where it says textbooks elementary was a plus 61%, when all along you see mostly minuses in there. So how is textbooks done?
If I may, and Dr. Cora is not here, so I will fill in for her. Overall, there is a per pupil allocation that is given out to the elementary schools, or the primary schools, and then in addition, that's based on enrollment, but in addition, Dr. Cora looks at what the needs of the entire primary level needs are, and then those funds are in that district-wide code.
Okay.
It's really a budgeting piece of what the building principal will order directly and what the assistant superintendent will order for the entire district.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It helps, and I'll ask my half part of my 2.5. It was said that the HMO contract was restructured to the tune of about $300,000, but yet the health, life, dental went up, I think, by 2.7 million. Could you just clarify what I'm missing on that?
Sure. The HMO, what the district did was there was an RFP done by an insurance expert that went out and remarketed for us the HMO plan. secured a different insurance provider, a different medical provider that recognized a $300,000 savings. That savings continues each year.
Okay, so the overall cost still went up 2.7 million, but if you reduce that by 300,000, what?
It would have been $300,000 higher had the district not renegotiated and switched carriers.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Susan Nissen, parent of a 9th grader and a Commack graduate, who's doing great, by the way, thanks to Commack. I would just like to thank the board to begin with for all your efforts. The community really does appreciate all the time and effort into maintaining such wonderful programs, academic and our sports programs and arts programs. I feel very privileged for my children to go to school here, so I just want to start with that. I also want to thank you for restoring the guidance counselor, because I think in this time and age, like that's a really, really important thing. So it was nice to see that come back. As a psychologist, I'm thrilled that we have these tuition-based programs for the special ed students. I think it's wonderful to educate them, in a public school setting. I just had some questions on the cost. I know the income is quite high on those students, but I know that also requires psychologists, social workers, occupational therapists, speech therapists, behavioral consultants. So what is the actual income from those students when you take out all the cost factors? Or I don't know if you can answer that because it's across grades, but...
Because it's a cost benefit in essence, so you have...
But are they absorbed?
Associated with the child is paid for by the state schools. So that would be, say, $300,000. That's $100,000. That district will send us $100,000 to educate, provide all those services. So there's a formula that's used to determine the cost of those services. Now, if it's my parents' service, with the therapy, that's paid for with the second classroom teacher, administrative costs, the overhead,
that's
divided based on the number of students in the class. So the actual expenditures is not based on this. The savings associated with that, when we can provide education for our children, is for real knowledge results. So although we bring in, say, 900,000, you can expect we're spending probably close to that.
Right.
Educate those children.
So it's
then the
kind of like a wash.
really is educating your own children without having to offset those costs with teachers and stuff.
So that's really paying for bringing these kids back, and
Don't bring that idea back to your own district.
yeah.
We're starting a program.
Yeah, we have too. Okay, thank you again.
My name is Donna Blanco. I'm the president for the Secretarial Association here at Commack. I just want to make a quick statement. As you know, we are in negotiations with our contract. I want to make a statement. First of all, there are 6 confidential secretaries, and I do want everyone to understand they are not part of our unit. Currently, we have 61 members of our unit for the entire district, for 7,400 students. These clericals work very hard. Many of our clericals, the majority of our clericals work throughout the summer to make sure that the children can start school on time with their busing, with all of their books, with everything that we need. And to lose 4 of them would be very, very difficult for this district, for this size. We are the direct liaison to the parents, the public, the visitors to the school. We are the first people that anybody sees when they come to Commack schools. I registered them from preschool, from the time they're 2 and 3 for services, and all the way through graduation. We see I went to the school district. My children went to the school district, and now I'm back with the little ones, and I love it. But to cut 4 full-time clericals would be very, very hard on this unit, and I do hope that we take that into consideration. We are working passionately to come to terms with our contract. Mr. Loudon, we are all in negotiation. But I do want the public to understand that behind the scene, the gears all year long, we make sure that everything is running. Transportation. This summer, we put in a new program, the Infinite Campus program. All those students had to be input. I know because we were doing them. And every one of them had to have a schedule, be input, turned over. Last year, 7 full-time clericals retired, and they were higher up there. And they were all replaced with much lower positions, or their positions were eliminated by attrition. So we are really working with a very small staff of clericals. I don't want, and our salaries are very small comparatively. We are the ones that you call when you want to know where your children are. We are the ones that you call when you say, where is the bus? Or Johnny left his lunch. We take care of your children. We are the ones processing the forms that get your children into college. We may not be the guidance counselors, but we are directly assisting the administrators, the parents, the bus companies. For 7,400 students, to cut us down to 57 clericals for 8 school buildings, plus private school buildings, plus transportation, would be very hard on this district. I don't think people realize it, including the music department, the sports departments, as well as all of the community events that we partake and help out with. We do the flyers, we help the PTAs. So just bear that in mind when you're grouping and you're getting mad at all of these contract negotiations. Everybody that does do negotiations, we are working actively to come to terms, but also realize that we are the same taxpayers as you. So when our taxes go up, my taxes go up, so do yours. And I'm paying 20% in insurance, 25% like everybody else, and we are trying very hard to make sure that we have enough clericals to keep the schools going with the services you're getting, to make sure when you call you don't get an answering machine, that you do get an actual person to help you. So I just wanted to make that statement that we really are trying, and please bear in mind that to cut 4 of us would be very, very hard on this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Cut everything, cut anything is very difficult for us. You do know that, and we do appreciate everything that you do. Thank you very much.
Hi, Kerry Zuckerman. I just have one quick question. This is in regards to the new structure for 4th grade classes. When do you expect to have a detailed plan as to how this is going to come about? And will you be giving an opportunity for parents in that grade to get some sort of overview as to what this new 4th grade class structure is going to look like with the TAs?
I would think that as the classes will be structured, that Dr. Core will work with those level administrators, so I'm certain we'll be working with the teaching staff to design that process, and then we'll share that with the parents. I don't have a timeline for that. As I said, Dr. Core is out right now.
Yes, I understand.
I'm not trying to give you an excuse, but I'm not going to design it instead.
Oh, of course. No, I'm just saying, you're going to start doing your building tours. So I'm just anticipating a lot of questions on that when you do come to Sawmill and Burr. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Laura. I just have 3 quick points. First is with respect to the RFP for the attorney, I agree. I'm an attorney by trade. I can tell you there are a boatload of attorneys on Long Island. And unless it's specialized work, for example, an attorney that deals with contract negotiations or what have you, a lot of the work can be farmed out. So if you can't get a 10% reduction on your $500,000 estimate, you're not trying hard enough, respectfully. Okay? It can be done. So 10%, that's $50,000. If you get 15% off that $500,000, that's $75,000. If you get 20%, which I'm confident you can do if you try very hard, that's $100,000. That is a teacher right there. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2 is, with all due respect, my son is going to go to Camp Mariah, but I have to tell you, I think it's a waste of money. I really do. And I'll tell you why. It's a waste of money because it's not necessary. I think sometimes you try to be all things to all people. And although I think it's a very nice thing, it costs a lot of money. So you're sending mixed signals. On the one hand, your budget is projecting deflationary costs and a difficult economic environment that has existed for many years and will probably, in all likelihood, continue to exist for at least the next 3, 4, 5 years. So how in that circumstance can you justify spending the money to Camp Mariah? And that's just one thing. If you could do it here on Long Island, you could probably do it for at least half the price. Why do you have to go upstate and expend that kind of money? In other school districts where they have similar type trips, they self-fund. So a child who might do that trip in 5th grade could start on his or her own funding 3rd, 4th, and 5th to go to the trip at the conclusion of 5th grade or toward the conclusion of 5th grade. Why are we spending money? You may not mean to do this, okay? And I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say that I'm assuming that you do not intend to do this, but you're sending mixed signals, okay? You came very close to laying off a guidance counselor who you just restored, apparently, or going to restore pursuant to your budget. Why should it be that close? You're not finding every cost cut that you could do efficiently. So the attorney's fees is one thing, Camp Ryan is another thing. The last point I want to bring up, respectfully, and I spoke to Dr. James earlier about this, and I appreciate it, but I just want to say it for the record. In my household, my wife and I both work outside the home. We both have a finite number of vacation and personal days. I'm sure that is true for many other people who live in Commack. I would guess, anecdotally, that it's true for more than 50% of people. Your projected calendar for 2014 states 2 consecutive weeks of holiday over the vacation, over the Christmas and New Year's. Now, I understand that both days fall, Christmas and New Year's are Wednesdays. I get that. Obviously, you have those days off. I get that you get Christmas, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. I understand that. I get that you get the days off. But why the Mondays and the Fridays? Over 2 weeks, that's 4 additional days. Okay? If you're fortunate enough in a private sector, okay, to have 4 weeks vacation, which many people are not fortunate enough to have, and even if they have, they are scared to use it, because in this industry or in this economy, if they use all that time, they could lose their job. Okay? But in this economy, if you have a finite number of vacation days and personal days, those 4 days make a difference. When I spoke to Dr. James, he said he would look into it. He said basically it's because BOCES is closed. Somebody get on the horn with BOCES and explain to them the difficulties that the average person from Commack and the average Long Islander is facing. This is still a very difficult economy. Okay? Don't believe all the press that the economy is getting all that better, because it's very, very difficult out there in the private sector.
So, and you're talking about the...
Monday, Friday. Okay? Also, I might add, if you have to pay for a week of childcare, when I say childcare, I mean the YJCC, that could go $600, $700. That's like having a $600, $700 tax increase, basically, and that's out of pocket. So to earn that money, you have to earn $1,000 to pay $600, $700 of course. Thank you.
Good evening, Dan Fusco. I first wanted to start off by saying that I think everybody in the community appreciates all the hard work that the teachers do, that the custodians do, that the secretaries do, and even the job that you guys do. You know, you guys might. We go Duke to Duke sometimes, but we appreciate the work you do. We appreciate the work everybody else. That said, it's on videotape. That said, it doesn't come at any cost. It can't come at any cost. I mean, the teachers make a very good salary in this district, and we're happy to pay them. But there has to be some give and take. This gentleman just said he has some financial difficulties with weeks off. I think we're all suffering, and I think we opened up these meetings by predicating that we're in tough financial times. I think that's how we opened up this meeting. And I just don't think that the negotiations have gone the way of the taxpayer in this district for a very long time. And I don't know if you guys are up to the task, if you need some professional help to help you in the negotiations with unions, but that's something maybe you have to consider. My question was, state aid. We keep hearing state aid's been cut, state aid's been cut, state aid's been cut. How is state aid determined? Is it a percentage of your budget? Is it a fair and reasonable price? I mean, if we decide we want to pay a teacher $500,000 a year, does the state say that's obsessive and we're not going to refund? We're not going to refund the state aid to pay for something like that? I mean, how does it work?
You want to answer?
I'll try to answer. Then I'll probably end this meeting. State aid is a complicated issue because there are various components within our state aid categories. Some of those components are in your handouts. Some of those categories are driven by how much money we spend in certain areas. Teacher salaries or anybody's salaries play no role in how much state aid we receive up or down. So if we spend money on special education services through BOCES, or we purchase computers through BOCES, or we get state aid for transportation, if we run our routes more efficiently, there's a way we calculate state. Then there is the foundation aid, which is the Long Island, and in fact other regions of the state, get quote-unquote shares. So Long Island this year is getting about 12.5% of the state aid package. That is then divvied up among the island districts on the island. They use some formulas to try to drive aid to certain districts, so high tax aid. They modified the formula. It hurt us initially, but it really helped other districts. And they modified it again, we restored it to previous levels, so we got that money as recovered. So managing state aid over time can be challenging. This is coming straight from our local representatives, as I had conversations with them. They have been doing this for a decade around state aid. Managing that particular number is unpredictable at best. And then they have the governor's proposal, when the original consent. Doesn't matter which governor. So I'm not going to blame this particular governor, but every governor comes out and lowballs them. And then we all do battle over the number. We advocate, we debate all kinds of conversations, and focus groups, emails and letters, and Senator Flanagan and Marcelino and Assembly, they help with that. They advocate to get us additional funds. We get additional funds, and we also, thanks for giving us what we should. So there is really little opportunity to advocate for beyond. So it's really this sort of balance between those two.
I guess I'm more concerned with the formula. Where is this formula, Ro? It's this hidden formula that we keep hearing about. You're trying to say that you don't know what the formula is?
Try to figure it out and keep the political application of year to year. So I'll tell you, turn this room at this point for additional support.
Absolutely. The state has pages and pages and pages of their formula that once they've made a determination of what that aid package is, they then generate the formulas. They determine those formulas, the school district does not. When they want to alter it, they do so. Just as we saw that in high tax aid, the state had a formula, they froze the formula for 3 years, then they changed the formula. I will say, after the advocacy efforts and the legislation said, no, put it back to the same frozen levels that were there, and that's what was done.
So where can we view the formula? Where is the formula published?
Many of the formulas are on the state education department website, and any member of the community can go online and download them.
And is it total budget? Is it cost per student? I mean, what are the numbers that they use in this formula?
It depends on which line item you're talking about, and in most cases, each line item of state aid may carry anywhere from 1 or 2 pages of a complex formula up to 7, 8, and even 9 pages of formulas. It's not a question that I can answer in one fell swoop. It would depend on which aid category you're talking about.
I guess the point that I was trying to make is, if a neighboring district is spending $20,000 per student, and we're spending, and I'm just going to throw a crazy number out there, $100,000 per student. Obviously, we're not going to recoup the state aid, because aren't they going to say your cost per student is out of line with the region?
I don't think so.